In the early 20th century, European cinema had experienced substantial growth in motion picture production and film potential capability, with new advancing technologies and techniques along the years. Beginning in the silent era, which lasted from 1895 to 1919, movies of this time period were only visual and contained no sound, which explained this era's title being the silent era. Instead of sounds applied in a film, silent movies would be accompanied by an orchestra to play live music in accordance to a film's context. Famous French director Georges Méliès had produced famous silent short films, including A Trip to the Moon and The Impossible Voyage, which utilized an orchestral performance when played to an audience. Other prominently known European celebrity actors of this era include Italian Rudolph Valentino, Polish Pola Negri, French Max Linder, British Charlie Chaplin, and many others. Several of these European-born actors would eventually take their talents to Hollywood's prestigious film industry. According to the graph, the number of movies being made in France and the UK are amounting at a low 100 movies produced annually by 1916 and years onwards. The US is soaring incredibly high as their film industry ranges to 1,000 feature films produced annually by 1916 and years onwards. The graph infers that the conflict of World War I in Europe during the years 1914 to 1918 most likely affected film production in France and the UK, yet were able to maintain their film industries in that time being. Come along in the 1920s, movies flourished greatly across Europe. Germany undergoes the Expressionist movement, which involves the participation of cinema and also painting. A new cinema style titled German Expressionism, or Weimar cinema, is born in the nation of Germany and gained much recognition in the 1920s. The German Expressionist cinema style revolves around inner feelings and is most known for the dark themes of insanity, horror, death, and fatality, mentalizing Germany's recent defeat in World War I. The Expressionist cinema first premiered in the German horror silent movie, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Other notable Expressionist movies of this time period include the Dracula-adapted Nosferatu and The Last Laugh, both directed by F.W. Murnau, and the influential science fiction film Metropolis, produced by Fritz Lang. France hosts the Impressionist movement. A new style of painting and cinema emerged from this movement. This cinema style reflects on film characters' emotions through point-of-view perspectives, filters to distort a character's vision, blurred images or setting camera lenses out of focus, and several other techniques to convey a character's sentiments. Notable Impressionist movement films include Napoleon, La Rue, and J'accuse, all directed by famous French Impressionist director Abel Gance. The Soviet Union develops a new cinematic style called Soviet montage, which relied heavily upon editing. Famous Soviet montage filmmaker Sergei Eisenstein made his film debut in the 1925 silent film Battleship Potemkin and was critically acclaimed worldwide. Eisenstein continues his filmmaking endeavors and produces films October and The General Line. Amongst the many motion pictures meant for entertainment purposes, informational films are being made as well. Spain had fabricated health-related film propaganda to enforce the awareness of venereal diseases in the form of documentaries. The 1927 Spanish documentary, The Terrible Lesson, had spread educational messages on venereal diseases to broad specters of the population of Spain as a cinematic act of propaganda. Supported by a simple story, this film is merely educative, giving advice against venereal diseases. Germany's Weimar cinema in the 1920s also developed medical-related films primarily devoted to raise attention to eugenics. Movies such as The Curse of Heredity, Inherited Instincts, and The Enemy in the Blood helped to indoctrinate familiarity with eugenics to their population and push their own political agendas. Several of these films made by Germany were shown in the United States. Furthermore, into the next decade, the silent era comes to a closing as sound is introduced within movies in the 1930s, entitling this time as the Age of Talkies. Movies now included synchronized sound effects and voices, but unfortunately for the silent film musicians supplying music for silent films, they no longer come in use as sound becomes integrated with motion pictures. Germany's 1929 I Kiss Your Hand, Madame was the first European motion picture that employed sound into a movie. With World War II on the rise, filmmakers seek to take advantage of the war by implementing propaganda in their movies and film documentaries. Examples of these aspirations would be the Nazi Germany documentaries Triumph of the Will and Der Sieg des Glaubens, both directed by notable German female director Leni Riefenstahl. Leni Riefenstahl also documented the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin in her documentary Olympia. This was also the era famous British director Alfred Hitchcock bloomed his filmmaking career in the United Kingdom, producing successful English films such as The Man Who Knew Too Much, The 39 Steps, and The Lady Vanishes. Great Britain excels in film production and enables itself as a major foreign competitor to Hollywood's film industry. Hitchcock eventually takes his filmmaking talents to Hollywood, unlike many other European film actors and directors. An unpromising early 1940s was impending for the European film industry as World War II raged all across the continent of Europe. It wasn't until 1943 to 1946 that film production returned to its ample well-being. During this time period, the film industry was able to efficiently make movies as a technical challenge had been countered due to the advancements of film technology. These advancements include the use of special effects, color, and sound recording. Coming to the end of World War II, the film industry peaked at their highest profits in 1946 with a tremendous record in theater attendance. European war movies gained large audiences with movies such as In Which We Serve, This Happy Breed, and Occult Forces. We reach a stop in 1945, but film technologies of course continued to advance, resulting with the brilliance of our modern day film production potential. Thanks to the boldness of the cinema pioneers, film has evolved stupendously.